Start recording for my bots. Okay, so this is going to be Rogue versus EnvyUs. It was, of course, the quarterfinals this morning. For OGN APEX, we had Rogue coming first out of their group, and they decided to choose EnvyUs as their opponent, which caused a bit of controversy. It was taken like as a bit of banter, right? Especially considering EnvyUs had visa issues with some people, and of course Tailspin decided to leave the team, so they had to get Mickey as a sub, right? So a lot of stuff happening around this match, in addition to like the already established rivalry that we had of Rogue versus EnvyUs, where they, of course, Rogue beat EnvyUs at the Atlantic Showdown at Gamescom, and then afterwards there was a bit of trash talk right before the Overwatch Open. So yeah, a cool matchup just because of like who these teams were. Okay, so let's start. Map 1, we have Ilios. Of course, Apex does this kind of weird thing where we have basically like game modes per map, right? Like you start always with the same game mode, right? So first map, it's always this best of 3 on King of the Hill, and then you go to a payload hybrid, and then you go to a control 2CP, and then so on. Right, so first map is going to be Ilios best of 3. So what we're going to look at during pretty much this entire series is what AKM is on, because I think like some of the reason why they lost is potentially because of like they didn't really know what to put him on, right? Traditionally, he was the McCree player or the Reaper player in the previous meta, right? So kind of like more the hit scan guy, right? But in this series, they really chose to put Tvik on Soldier pretty much the entire series. Or at least when there was a Soldier, it was Tvik and not AKM, right? So we have a standard 2-2, 2 tanks, 2 supports, fairly standard. They choose to go with the Tracer's AKM's Tracer, of course, for a double dive. So you have Soldier in the back and then double dive, right? So fairly nothing too complicated, right? Here we're gonna see what is kind of becoming, from what I've seen, kind of becoming a standard. So it's a 3-2, these 3 tanks, and then 2 supports with a Soldier, okay? So D.Va got buffed, Soldier got buffed. Soldier does way more damage. It's only like 3 extra damage per shot, but in DPS, it's actually quite a bit, right? So all of a sudden, he's relevant again. With the nerfs to Nano Boost, which is, of course, they removed the mobility when you get nano boosted. All of a sudden, it's really not too good to put it on a Reaper or even the tanks here, right? So the tag visor is actually all of a sudden probably the best way to use nano boost. So this combo we're going to see a ton of, and it's really becoming the standard, right? And so in this meta where Soldier's becoming really good because of tag visor getting nano boosted, D.Va, not only did she get buffed, but she's also really good at countering that nanoed attack visor. So we're also going to be seeing lots of D.Va in this meta, apparently. So let's go ahead. Ruins. You have some pretty interesting sightlines. Every once in a while, you see a Widow come up on Ruins because you can have some high grounds and find some shots. We see an engage by Reinforced trying to jump in and get shielded, right? But on this team, you have the 2 shotgun tanks that are Roadhog and D.Va that can do a lot of damage, and also a Soldier, because of his more the more damage he has now, he's actually not too bad at dealing with tanks. So because of that, like the Winston doesn't do too much, right? But we have Tvik getting some kills. Comes back. Somehow Rogue managed to cap the point because MV wasn't really contesting on point. But yeah, Tvik is just going off, which is kind of interesting. Like, as I said, AKM was the predominantly hit scan player. So if they're not putting him on Soldier, and Tvik was always more this kind of like DPS player that can pretty much play anything, right? So if he's the one on Soldier, that means AKM isn't comfortable playing Soldier at the moment, I guess. So they were like, okay, we need to find something that works for this specific match. Of course, the patch was just a few days ago. So they put Vic on Soldier and try to find something that ACAM can do, right? Now he's a good tracer, so this specific map is not too much of a problem. Not too much of a problem. He is going to be doing a pretty good job actually harassing the backline on Tracer. Okay, and because of the Tracer, we have an answer by Taimu. Of course, Roadhog can be okay to try to hook Tracers, but it's kind of a skill matchup. Like, you need to really be smart about using your hook. So they decide to swap to the McCree that has, the flashbang, maybe a bit of an easier time flashbanging than hooking a Tracer, but still not necessarily easy. Because if you fuck up your flash, then the Tracer can kill you. I'm not going too much in like ult management. Like this stage was fairly one-sided. You can see ACAM in the backline really doing damage. Vic being like the hit scan that's in the backline, just really outputting this constant source of damage. And so yeah, they pretty much just quite easily take the first stage. Even in that, it boosted Tracer. I don't know if that was like on purpose or if it was like he went in front of the Soldier or something. I'm not sure. So they take stage 1. So at this point, right, coming in, you have to remember that Rogue is the favorite, right? They won APAC, they won the Atlantic Showdown. A lot of people think that they could have been in the finals of the Overwatch Open. They just lost to Misfits that had a really strong showing there, right? So they're considered the best team. And I would agree with that. But this recent patch kind of changes things, right? Okay, so second stage, this is well. So you have the very big hole in the middle, which means that the Roadhog can hook people in there and the D.Va can push people in, of course. So pretty much the same composition, except they replace the Soldier in this 3-2 composition with a McCree. Now, is this a really good read? Maybe. Maybe they're scared of the Tracer, so instead of going Roadhog Soldier, they go Roadhog McCree. That way you have the hook and the flashbang. But also, I think McCree is still is a tiny bit better at dealing with Pharahs, I feel. Because instead of having to like land 10 shots on the Pharah, you can, if you get 2-3 good shots on her, then it's a bit more bursty, and I think that helps you take a Pharah down a bit better. I'm not sure, but it's kind of like depends how comfortable you are on those DPSs. Anyway, so Rogue goes back to their 2-2 with still the Winston, which is kind of funny because we've seen a shit ton of Reinhardts on King of the Hill these past few months. But yeah, goes back to a standard Winston Zarya, same supports, and they go no Soldier. They want the mobility from the Genji and the Pharah. The Pharah being in the air, we talked about the well, so she can boop people, that's pretty good. And the Genji can do a lot of things, going over these this verticality that you have on the map. There's lots of places that you can climb and come at the enemy team from like different angles. So that's all right, I think. Oh, we didn't talk too much about Pharah, but I mean, she's probably my best hero. I just love to play her, and she got changed a bit. A lot of people started talking about it. The changes to her rockets doing more splash damage. Obviously, that's good. But then they kind of removed the minimum knockback from those rockets. Now, a lot of people think that all of a sudden her rockets don't do knockback anymore. That's not quite true. It's the minimum amount. Before, as long as you were in the radius to get some kind of knockback, it would be 75% of that knockback. Now, the minimum is just 0. So, it still does the same amount of knockback if you, like, land on it, right? If you hit it. It's just like, if you land slightly on the side, if you land a rocket like slightly to the side, it doesn't quite knock back as much. So it's hard to say if that, in the end is more of a buff or a nerf. That's debatable. But the buff to her jet fuel, that's definitely a buff, and that really helps her in terms of maneuverability, because you can really get super creative with your angles and like which side you come from, basically. So that means even though they have a hit scan over here, he needs to locate the Pharah in the air to really be able to find her. And if you're a good Pharah, you can get super, super creative now. You can pretty much fly all the time. So anyway, I wasn't paying attention too much. Like this quality on the video isn't great also. Okay, so initially, Envy, it seems that Mickey killed 2 people. I'm not sure how. AKM trades on chips. He's hiding behind the windmill, but yeah, he has to go back. So right away, we see Tvik. He's like, oh, there's a McCree, there's a Roadhog. I don't want to play Genji, I want to play Soldier. Okay, because what we said about the Tracer for these guys also is somewhat valid for the Genji, even though he does have Reflect. It's still not easy when you constantly have flashbangs and hooks flying towards you. So yeah, and as I said, Soldier's just really good this patch. And Rogue retakes the points. Some teams have been really interested in the Pharah, which I want to see more of, but if everybody's constantly running soldiers, I think it's going to be kind of hard for her. It's really all about the Pharah player. Like it's on the Pharah player to outplay the enemy hit scan, which is not necessarily always easy. All right, so they're holding on point. They don't have a Reinhardt for the hit scan, right? So when you have a soldier, you want to put a big fat shield in front of him so that he can really just go to town. Here they don't have that, right? So like before, when they had Pharah Genji, the Winston is good because it's double dive with the Genji and then Pharah doing her thing. But now, like, the soldier's kind of like just freelancing, running around, which I guess is okay. But I'm not sure you're getting much value out of the Winston. And I feel like the Roadhog can do quite a bit of damage. But then again, Roadhog also, you know, causes issues with shields because he can just like right click the Reinhardt shields. So it's I don't know. It's debatable, I guess. Here we have the Graviton, the Barrage. It's an interesting angle. Not enough people go for this kind of on-the-ground barrage, but it's really surprising because when you hear it, you usually just look above. But if she's not there, then you don't really know where. The problem here is that you're barraging this way, and you can also get shot from this from anyone coming back from spawn. I'm not sure. It was the Reinhardt, so Coco, I guess, was not in the Graviton, and he managed to kill AKM. So maybe, I don't know if AKM was up here or he came through this, but maybe like staying outside of the range of the Reinhardt, right? So about like 2-3 meters in the sky would have been better to shoot at the Graviton. But it's situational. Sometimes I feel like sometimes people are too scared to do it from the ground, and sometimes you know, they're right to be scared, but it can work out every once in a while. Okay, despite AKM falling, they still win the fight because of the Graviton. Mickey's over here. He's trying to wait for his team, and he has the self-destruct. Of course, in the later maps, we're gonna see some crazy self-destructs by Mickey, but I don't think on this map anything too exciting happens. Doesn't get much out of the High Noon. He gets dropped by Tvik. We see Taimu with a whole hog. Gets 2. A third. And yeah. Yeah. As you can see, like the D.Va is just in charge of jumping on the soldier. Like, that's what we're going to see in this meta. Oh, the soldier's using Tac Visor? Yeah, D.Va, you need to jump in and you need to negate all of that. And there's pretty much nothing you can do about it as soldier. So it's all about managing the D.Va's mech and making sure she's out of mech or she doesn't have any defense matrix available so that you can then use Tac Visor. And sometimes if you're not keeping track of that, you're going to have your whole ult completely negated. So Winston jumps in for the engage. We see a nano boosted Pharah. That's also something that isn't quite done as much as I think it should, because it's really strong. Like, okay, right here they're going for this solo Pharah, so it's not a combo with a Mercy. But when you have a damage boosted nanoed Pharah, she can one-shot 200 HP targets, right? Because her rocket is 120. Okay, you get 50% extra from the nano boost, so that's plus 60, so that's 180, and then you get an extra 30% from Mercy's damage boost, so that's like somewhere around like 210, right? So it's extremely strong, even if you don't combo it with Barrage. Now, when you go nano and Barrage, like Barrage is, if you count every single rocket that's being fired, Barrage is the strongest ult in the game in terms of damage, right? But because of the spread, you don't hit everything on the same target, right? So, yeah, it's still really good. It's still really good. This combo, this nano boosted Pharah, does crazy amount of damage. But since you're static, you can be hooked, you can be slept, you can be overall just shot at very easily, so it requires a bubble, and that's the reason why people were still favoring Death Blossoms on previous patch, and it's wild. They're still going to be favoring soldier, nano boosted soldiers on this patch probably. So EnvyUs still has the points, they're at 70 now. That means Rogue only has one good push and then just trickling back. They have Sound Barrier, Primal Rage, and Barrage. Harry Hook is trying to find some kind of high ground that he can high noon from, and this is not great. I guess it's alright in terms of sightline. You can see this, you can see that way, but you're missing pretty much everything hitting from like this angle, right? Everything on the point that's here, he's not going to be able to see, right? So if he high noons here, chances are he's going to have to jump down and go on point to see anything. It's not the greatest high ground high noon position. And actually, right. So do you see there? They nano boosted the McCree for the high noon, right? And AKM just used the Barrage on him, as well as the Monkey jumping on him. But he shot it to kill AKM, but Wins had like the perfectly timed bubble onto his brother AKM. So they take out the McCree with a high noon. They also chase down the Ana, and now they pretty much have the advantage. AKM tries to go for the boop, not quite the good angle, but they've done enough damage. Now they just have to clean up the Baby Diva and the Lucio, and they retake the point. Right, so EnvyUs tries to trickle back in with some like tracers and stuff, but it's not going to be enough. Rogue retakes the point. Oh, I thought they were at 99. They're not quite. Okay. So that leaves a bit of time to EnvyUs to come back on point. But like they're just running back and staggered. So it's not going to work out great. And there we go. So 2-0 to Rogue. At this point of the match, of course, it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is kind of planned out. Rogue is going to show up big and take care of EnvyUs, you know, no questions asked. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened. So let's move on right away to the other map, which was King's Row. So I saw this, I made a tweet about it because I was like, what the hell is going on here? Okay, this is a 5-1 composition. 5 tanks on the side of Rogue. Literally every single tank in the game. And then an Ana. So we need to talk about like what happened this patch. All ultimates were nerfed by 25%. Which means all the big damage ults that you usually have, you know, the Genji, the Pharah, the Blossom, the High Noon, all that, right? They're still the same, but they just happen less often, right? So overall, that's a lot of damage that's just lost throughout a game. Instead of having like, 5, 6 good combos in a game, you're only gonna have like 3 or 4, right? So because of that, the healing that you have is usually gonna be able to sustain people because you're just shooting at them with regular abilities, right? You don't have the burst of those ultimates as often, right? So all of a sudden, the healing that you have in the game becomes enough to sustain people during most of the game. Because of that, that means you can pick these tanks, right? They have a lot more HP that can be healed. Therefore, they won't die just because they got hit by like 1 or 2 rockets, and so they can get sustained. So we've seen a shit ton of really just 3 tank compositions, and this is like, obviously it's a bit weird. I don't even think it's that great, but it's kind of a result of this patch, right? A lot less damage ults makes it easier to sustain. If you're talking like throughout a match, a lot of the damage that's going to be done is more pokey damage, and you can sustain that, right? So you're going to want people with more HP so that you can more easily sustain them. So people are going through 2 tanks, right? So 3 tanks is going to be pretty much the standard. Here we see something a bit weird. 5 tanks. I don't think we're going to see that too much, but it's still interesting. Still interesting. On this side, 3-2, 3 tanks, 2 supports with the Hanzo. So it's a pick comp where you can get picks with the Roadhog and the Hanzo. The D.Va's here because she got buffed, but also she protects the Reinhardt, okay? Because in this situation, it's really a shield battle, so you gotta try to figure out who's gonna break the shield first. And if you can defense matrix over the Reinhardt shield, it helps absorb some of that, so you can have your shield up a bit longer, right? So let's go. In terms of front lines, like, people picked Zarya because, like, sure, Graviton was great. Okay, he's actually gonna swap the Hanzo. Never mind. But yeah, people used to have Zarya here because the Reinhardt, you needed to protect him against flashbangs. So one of the very basic combos, you speed boost in and you try to put a flashbang above the shield so that his shield goes down, and then your Reinhardt can earth shatter the whole team, right? In order to negate that, you took the Zarya to time a bubble onto your Reinhardt when the flashbang went through so that his shield wouldn't go down, and therefore your team wouldn't get earth shatter, right? Here we're going to see more and more as people move towards the soldier. We're going to see more and more of just straight up Reinhardt D.Va, where the D.Va is going to be here to help mitigate some of that soldier damage onto the Reinhardt shield. So Taimu swaps. Okay. So he does the sonic arrow thing to get a good idea of the composition. He's like, holy shit, that's a lot of tanks. So he goes to Reaper right away. Reaper's not the best in the meta, right? This isn't last batch. It's not the best. You can go for the Beyblade thing, but you don't have speed, so it's really kind of awkward. You have a shit ton of damage, but to get in there, it's gonna be a lot harder. Now, some people are gonna say, yeah, but you still have Lucia's speed boost, but generally the enemy team is going to have it as well. Now Rogue doesn't have it here, but like that's just Rogue trying stuff out, I guess. And this 5-1 comp is not going to work out at all. Like, for whatever reason, they just went ham at the start, right? And Unko dies. If Unko dies in this composition, you have a bunch of just tanks running around not doing much, basically. You don't have the damage to back them up. Zarya's going to have a bit harder time to maintain her energy this patch, so her damage overall goes a bit down. D.Va, yeah, she's good for her utility, and she's more mobile, so her damage potential does increase a bit with that mobility. And Roadhog does quite a bit of damage, but still, like, those 5 tanks, it was kind of awkward. Okay, so Rogue swaps out, goes back to a standard 2-2, so we have the Lucian there from Nox, and they go to the Soldier Pharah. So not quite the Soldier Roadhog that we're going to see a lot, but a Soldier Pharah. So this is what I was mentioning at the start. AKM. He's the guy that we've seen on McCree and Reaper for the past, well, Reaper for the past 2 months, and then McCree and Tracer for pretty much since mid-June, basically, right? And all of a sudden, he's playing Pharah, which is usually Tvik's pick, right? Now that's a big statement. That's a big statement. That means that they don't even put Tvik on Pharah. He's one of the best Pharah in the world, I think. And yet, because probably AKM isn't comfortable on Soldier right now, they choose to have Tvik on Soldier and then AKM trying to do something on Pharah. It's literally the first, like, I don't know, I wasn't watching games back in the beta, but I've never seen AKM on Pharah in a pro match ever since, like, yeah, June. So I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on. Obviously, they had a few days to prepare for this match. They did the pick thing where they chose EnvyUs. That was Wednesday last week. So they had the opportunity to play on Friday. So that meant only 1 day of preparation. They chose to be on the other side of the bracket, right? Just to have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of prep to be ready for this match. And in those 4 or 5 days, this is what they came up with. So obviously, in terms of like hero pools, it's a bit weird. Okay. Okay, I did mention we have Harry Hook actually on the McCree here instead of, he was on Hog. Now, because of the swap, they mentioned this, Monty and Doa do. Because of the swap, all of your ultimate charge that you had first point just gets lost. So you lose the first fight pretty quickly, and then you're pretty much guaranteed to lose the second and third fight just because of ults. So, yeah. EnvyUs is going to snowball this based off of the composition that Rogue had on first point, basically. So the Pharah doesn't work out, not only because of the McCree, but also D.Va makes things complicated with her defense matrix. So AKM goes to the Roadhog. So this is a bit more standard, right? More of like the new standard, right? Except maybe for the Zarya, who's going to be replaced by the D.Va. This here is pretty much standard comp this patch, from what I've seen in scrims. Alright, so finally they start having ults. Wins uses the Graviton, but we have a Beyblade, which is probably going to be something very rare this patch, but still a Beyblade. And EnvyUs secures second point, right? So this entire second phase was snowballed because of the decisions that were made for the first point defense by Rogue. If you want to experiment weird things in terms of composition, it's always better to do it on attack. On defense, it's just really punishing. Alright, so EnvyUs is kind of content to keep this running. As we can see, Wins used the Zarya Graviton and then instantly swaps to D.Va. Probably because they're aware they're losing the shield battle. So this is what I was talking about. Reinhardt is right here. He's got his shield up. And you have the D.Va behind using defense matrix. Oh, this is going to be a terrible drawing. But the D.Va's here, and she's using her defense matrix in front of the shield to absorb some of the damage that's coming through so that your shield can stay up for longer than the enemy shield over here that we see, right? And whichever team does this and does more damage at the enemy shield has an advantage because you're going to be able to earth shatter the enemy team. And a lot of what I've seen in a few scrims that I've watched, That's like a big thing that's going on. So you have the soldier shooting shields, you have the Roadhog doing right clicks, and you need to take that shield down to enable the Earth Shatter. Because since we're not running Zarya anymore, Earth Shatter is pretty much the only AoE crowd control that you have. So it becomes really important to use it properly. So if you just, like last patch, Earth Shatter was kind of an afterthought. It was like, since people even just kept it to try to Earth Shatter a Reaper that was coming in with Beyblade, but that didn't work all the time, right? So in this patch, if it's the only CC ult, it becomes really important, right? So you see Tvik right here, he's just shooting the shield. Okay, and now we see the combo. So this is the big combo this patch, and as soon as the combo goes down, as soon as he gets nano boosted, you saw Mickey. He left the Reinhardt. He was playing with the Reinhardt, protecting his shield back there. As soon as he sees this, he has no choice. He needs to get in front of this, right? And that's proper play. That's what you need to do if you want to play D.Va this match. You see a soldier, you have to just rush through it. Someone got booped. Harry Hood got 2 with a high noon, I think. Maybe not a high noon. Yeah, I don't think he had it. And those hooks, right? So you have shields, defense matrix from behind. At any point, you have these hooks trying to go on the side of shields, right? So here, Reinforce dropped his shield down for a bit, and D.Va does protect him with the defense matrix, but if he drops it, he gets hooked. And that's exactly what happened. When he gets hooked, he gets naded by the Ana, and right here he's in the enemy team, he's probably gonna die. And he does die, eventually. They trade with Wins going ham on the Harry Hook, which is good, but yeah. Also, weird thing going on this patch, I don't know why. Divas have their name twice this patch, right? So it says Wins here, and right under this it says Wins, because the Diva suit has a name and the baby Diva inside has a name. I don't know what's going on there, Blizzard. You probably want to do something about it. You can see it. There's like an arrow here, an arrow here. It says Wins, just to make sure you know they're both Wins. Another hook. Once your shield goes down, as I said, hooks, like defense matrix doesn't stop hooks, so it's just Hook City at that point. Nox drops the sound barrier. They try to counter push into this. And just, yeah, shooting shields. Shooting shields. Ooh, that was actually really good. Let's just go back a tiny bit. Right, so he got hooked. AKM previous fight. Yeah, right. So AKM's on Roadhog. He gets hooked. And I think this is a stall swap, right? So when you're scared that the enemy's just going to finish out the map, you start swapping to the Divas, the Mays, the Tracers, just to get back on the payload and stall as much as you can. And maybe that's the swap here, because I don't see why, like, in terms of composition, I don't see why Tracer would be an answer to any of this. So I think this is just more of a swap to make sure you can get back there in time, right? But it turns out like he didn't really need to do that. But then at that point, like, you're not just gonna run back and swap again and then run back to the fight. So he just stays on Tracer. And so he's gonna blink in the back. Right, so AKM went through this way. He's going all around in the kind of horseshoe in here. And he's going to try to go aggressive, right? So Harry Hook does the high noon, but we can see there's the shield up. There's also we can't really see it, but it's a defense matrix going on here to make sure he can't shoot through this. Of course, I did a whole video about shields and McCree ults. That was Vici Gaming against NRG back at the APEX. You should watch that. But yeah, if there's a defense matrix in there, the high noon's not even gonna damage the shield, so Harry Hook doesn't shoot. And in the meantime, AKM that went all around here just goes aggro and tries to take down. Well, tries and succeeds in taking down Harry Hook. Alright, Mickey gets a good ult. Well, a decent ult. He's gonna get some good ones after this. And once again, the soldier attack visor, nano attack visor combo just getting negated by a diva. And this is just stall mode, right? So just trying to get back on payload, trying to stall the yeah. Ooh, that was a nice shot from Harry Hook. They get Vic, they get Nox, and here we have Taimu using Whole Hog to make sure they can't touch the payload. And that helps EnvyUs close out the map. So yeah, questionable decision to go for that 5-1 comp on first point that then punishes Rogue in second point, and then overall that just leaves too much time for EnvyUs to close out the game, to close out the map, right? So now Rogue goes on attack. They're going to play exactly the same composition they played on one of those Ilios points, which is a 2-2 with a Winston. You add a Genji in there, that way you have double dive with the Winston Genji combo, and you have a Pharah. But they're not overcommitting on a Pharah with a Mercy. They're keeping their standard 2 supports, just putting a Pharah in there so that you can kind of jump in with the Winston, follow up with the Genji, and also have the Pharah in the air kind of following up. All right, so it's a very aggressive jump in kind of comp, because if they think there's a soldier on the other side, they need to get on top of him, right? They can't just let the soldier on the high ground or do damage, right? They need to like really pressure him, right? On the side of EnvyUs, we see same 3 tanks, okay, 2 supports, but they decide to swap out the Lucio for a Zenyatta. Now this is interesting, and it's also something I've seen quite a bit in scrims. When you don't feel like you need the speed boost, right? You can go for a Ana Zenyatta combo. You're going to be a lot more static, but it adds a huge amount of damage, right? So they don't go for the soldier here. They seem to prefer, at least in this case, the McCree. But Zenyatta soldier does a crazy amount of damage. It just melts it just melts tanks, right? So we said tanks are good because of what happened to ults, which therefore means they can get sustained, right? So you just need more damage. So if you can afford to not have the speed and have Zenyatta's Discord, right, that's going to help you out in terms of damage, right? So this is also something kind of standard. If you just replace this by soldier, this is also kind of standard defense first point from what I've seen. So it's good on first point because you're static. Like you can't really, you could counter push a bit into the attack if you had the Lucio, and here you can't do it. But probably on second phase you want to swap out to a Lucio, and third point you can also swap back to a Zenyatta if you want, right? But overall street phase you usually want to have a Lucio. So let's go and let's see how they try to attack this. Right? They're not even showing the Pharah yet. Right? They're not showing the Pharah. You can press tab after 15 seconds to see the composition, right? So in 2 seconds they're going to see the Pharah, EnvyUs is. But for now, they don't know there's a Pharah. Right now they do. Right now if they press tab they do, and therefore Rogue engages, right? So Rogue was waiting for those 15 seconds to see the composition. All of a sudden they see, okay, McCree Zenyatta, that's our priority, right? If we don't kill these guys, then the Pharah's probably dead because she can get discorded and then 2-shot by the McCree, right? So these are priority, and Ana's always the priority anyway. But careful about the hook, careful about the defense matrix, right? So now Rogue just has to go for this Zenyatta. He takes it in 2 really good rockets. Tvik kind of dove in the back over here, and they're kind of forcing them off the point already, which is pretty good. Now what EnvyUs is doing is they're retreating this way, and they're willing to lose a tiny bit of this, right? They're okay with losing a third, maybe a second, as long as they can kind of keep this for a bit longer, right? So you get engaged on very aggressively by this mobile composition that Rogue is running. So you retreat in there, take care of the Genji Winston that jumped on you, and then you can come back and try to retake the point, which is what they're doing right now. ACAM lands a rocket on D.Va that was not in her suit anymore, and EnvyUs has nano boost, so they nano boost the Reinhardt, not because it's very good this patch, like because you don't have the speed boost anymore. It's not great on Reinhardt. It's really not great. But if that's the only target you have and you're trying to defend this, then you might as well nano boost him. Okay, that was a good shield by Wins, because if he doesn't shield him, like ACAM's just dead right there. It's a really good shield timing. But with the retake and then the respawns and reinforcements that EnvyUs does, they're able to defend, right? So it's really kind of bend but don't break defense, right? If you need to retreat into the archway over here, right, you do so. You deal with what's going on there in terms of divers, and then you try to retake the point. Too many people try to like live or die on this point, and in the end, that's not necessarily like the best way to do it. Rogue got a third, but you know, that's no big deal. If you compare that to what EnvyUs did on their push, like it's not even comparable, right? EnvyUs just did one big push and won the entire fight, and therefore they won the point. Here, like you're willing to sacrifice this to ensure that you can win the fight, thus retaking the point. Okay, and I think that's a smart decision, basically. So ACAM tries to go for the back line. He gets killed by multiple people. Chips gets the kill in the end, but he wasn't like the only one doing the damage there. They nano boosted the Genji. And did he get Earth Shattered? He's on the ground. He either got, yeah, he got Earth Shattered. Because Chips is in the back, so he probably, yeah, he got Earth Shattered. About the nano boosted Dragon Blade. With the nerfs to nano boost, it does make it a bit harder to get as many resets, but Genji still has his dashes when he does get resets, so he's not hurt as much as like a Beyblade because of the mobility nerfs on nano boost. Okay, Wins gets a Graviton, good grab, 3 people, and that kind of closes out the fight. But if you see in terms of time, you know, they took 2 minutes. EnvyUs took 45 seconds. So they're already behind on time. Already behind. Oh, he got slept? The Genji? Okay, he got slept. It was either that or the Earth Shatter. And like Coco had like 20% in Earth Shatter, but like that's kind of deceptive because like on Reinhardt, if you get just 2 or 3 good swings of your hammer, you can get ult charge pretty fast, so I wasn't sure. Alright, so Rogue's trying to be aggressive. Look at the payload. It's just at the start, but they're already pushing up, trying to get more picks. However, EnvyUs has already reinforced, and oh well, they're in the process of reinforcing from the back spawn over there. So this is a bit dangerous, and we see Nox getting killed. So it's good to be aggressive like this when you do get a point, but this was just a bit too much, right? Because when the defense is split between the forward spawn that is right here and the back spawn over there, that is when you can play aggressive and try to pick some of these guys that kind of linger around over here, right? But if they're being disciplined and going back to the rest of their team towards the back spawn and then re-engage, that's when the attack kind of gets picked off, and that's exactly what happened there. So it's pretty good discipline by EnvyUs here. And at that point, like, since during all that time you only had one person during the payload, they're just at the arch, right? At the arch over here, right? Which is a really good choke point, right? You can only go through this or the tiny window above, or go around over there and behind, if you see what I mean. And then there's also the door in the bottom over there. It's yeah, okay, so you have this, you have an entrance over there, you have this, and you have above this way and behind. It's still pretty hard. Like, this is where teams on last patch, when they had May, they would try to hold quite a bit. So it makes it a bit awkward. Fair is really good once you've gone after the arch, but going through the arch, going out this window is like super risky as Farah. Alright, so he's trying to wait for his team because he has barrage, but if he just uses it right away, yeah, he's gonna try to go for it, but it's risky. He targets the Lucio, which I'm not sure. Like, that's not a priority target, right? This is a better target, this is a better target than the Lucio. And then the D.Va is just kind of cock blocking you with her defense matrix. So he falls down. They nano boosted the McCree. And here we have the nano boosted Dragon Blade. And he gets a second one before falling. So a pretty close fight, but Rogue does manage to get a bit more out of it. It's not quite going to be enough to get this point though, right? Because based on where the payload is, you can get right. If you get a fight about here, so between like the arch and this point here, you're usually going to be able to come back in time to contest right at the right at the checkpoint, which is what EnvyUs is going to try to do here. Yeah, they're already in position, so they're pretty much fine. Good graviton. One of the points to make about graviton is because we're going to see D.Vas a lot, you want to make sure you don't graviton into her defense matrix. So the trick is to get in there and to aim directly at your feet. Because what happens is, let's say, how can I draw this? Okay, let's say this is defense matrix. Okay, this is defense matrix. If you go in there as Zarya, and right here, you look straight down at your feet, and you fire the graviton here, the game kind of considers that it just hits, the graviton kind of instantly hits the ground and activates, right? So it doesn't get, even though you're in the hitbox of the defense matrix, it just activates right away. It doesn't get negated, right? If you don't get in there, if you kind of just stand here and try to shoot it, that's when you get wrecked by D.Va's defense matrix. So another fairly close fights, but Rogue still does enough damage. Or do they? I think they still cap this. Or am I wrong? I could be wrong. Nano boosted barrage, that's really good, but because of the D.Va can negate all of that, right? So he didn't get too much out of that combo, but they're still able to push them back a bit. Vic trying to get some resets. Right, so time-wise, EnvyUs finished with 321. Here we're at 312, so they're already behind on in time, and they still have to get like probably the hardest part of the map. Because, like, of course, the defensive spawn is really close, so you're able to like reinforce very fast. Go for Dragon Blade. He gets one, which really isn't enough. And during this time, his team is already dead, so as soon as he comes back out, he just gets kind of wrecked by everyone. And here is where we see the swap. So he goes off Genji for the soldier. I'm not sure if they swap to Reinhardt right now. I think they do. But as soon as I see the soldier, I'd like to see like a Reinhardt right here. And probably like also just swap this out. I don't know. If you want to play around the soldier, you gotta use some of those resources to play around him, right? So put a shield in front of him. Try to break down shields, help him break down shields with a Roadhog. I think they swap eventually. Maybe not yet. Maybe they want to get something out of this ult that's going to be coming. So Nano Boost on McCree again, takes care of the Monkey, takes care of the Pharah, really nice shot. Right, so if we're talking damage-wise, McCree left click if he's within a fall-off range, fall-off damage range, which is about 25 meters, I want to say, right? He does 70 damage per shot, right? Plus 50% because of the Nano Boost, so that's 105, right? Times 2, that's 210, right? So he just needs to land 2 shots, 2 body shots onto the Pharah to kill her, or headshot is usually this, which means 210. So 1 headshot or 2 body shots to kill the Pharah. And there we go. This is the swap. Go back to the Reinhardt to have a shield in front of the soldier, and go back to the Roadhog so that you can go for these shield battles. Okay, pressure the shield, get a pick if the shield does fall. If you have Earth Shatter, the shield falls, then you can use it, blah blah blah. But they still have wins on Zarya because he has a Graviton for next fight. So we have essentially the same composition, except the hit scan is different and the off tank is different. Looking for this Graviton. He's scared about the D.Va, of course, so he needs to be smart, and there we go. Okay. He was looking at the D.Va right here and making sure she was running out of defense matrix to shoot the Graviton here, right? So that was really smart timing by Wins. Because if he mistimes it and D.Va actually does her defense matrix here, this is completely negated and wasted. So he does this, but we have the High Noon. Oh, I didn't see that. When I was watching. Really clutch sleep by Unko here. I'm not sure where Unko is. He's probably in the back right here. Alright, so he just got vision of the High Noon and used a really good sleep onto him. Sleep dart. But they still wipe out. Oh, that's just ridiculous. Let's look at that again. So Earthshatter, there's at least 2 on the ground because of Coco's Earthshatter right here. Unko's already dead, Wids is already dead. Reinhardt is in the process of dying here, I think. And there's also the Roadhog right here. So they cleaned these 3, and then ACAM's trying to run away. And let's look at this hook. That's alright. I thought it was worse than that. It's okay. because of the hitbox that the hook has, sometimes you have just absolutely ridiculous stuff. That was alright, I guess. Alright, so we have combo for Rogue. Nano attack visor. Still gotta worry about the Diva. Rogue does swap here to the Diva themselves, so you have now even comps that are even closer. It's just the McCree here that's different. Soldiers shooting in Divas. This is gonna be hilarious all patch long. Decent tracking. High noon, high noon. Winds countering the high noon. That's really well played. He's trying to hammer the shield with McCree's right click. Alright, kills the Diva. Only 15 seconds remaining. But Rogue still has the combo. Alright. They now have 4 ults. Almost Diva, almost Lucio, so close to 6 ults. EnvyUs had to use pretty much everything to defend, or everything they had to defend previous push. And they're a bit further on other ults. So we're gonna see the Nano attack visor. And yeah, it's really good. Provided you don't have a Diva in front of you, obviously that combo is really good. Okay, so we're gonna... I'm just gonna